It was supposed to be a quiet birthday. Just me, my daughter Lucy, a store-bought cake, and a handful of balloons taped to the window. She'd just turned 8, all gap-toothed grins and sticky fingers. Then the package arrived. No note, just her name scribbled in my mother's handwriting. Lucy tore it open like kids do, loud and happy, until she stopped. Completely. She pulled out the dress, pink, soft, with delicate white embroidery near the chest. Her face changed. "What is this, Mommy?" she asked. I stepped closer, looked at the name sewn into the fabric, and my hands started shaking. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did something else. Something that changed everything. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My parents were calling, over and over. But it was already too late. It showed up in the afternoon mail, no announcement. Just a cardboard box with one corner crushed, sitting awkwardly on our front step like it had second thoughts about being delivered. I almost stepped over it. But Lucy saw her name first. "Oh, is that for me?" She was still in her pajamas, mismatched socks, frosting smudged on her cheek from the leftover cake. "Looks like it," I said, already feeling that familiar tightness in my stomach. The handwriting on the label was unmistakable, my mother's careful, slanted print, the kind she used on Christmas cards, wedding gifts, and overly sweet apologies. A pink ribbon was taped over the seal. Of course it was. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, right next to Lucy's half-drawn unicorn and a cup of apple juice. "Can I open it now?" "Go ahead." She dug in like she always does, no hesitation, just joy. That's the thing about Lucy. She loves getting mail. You could send her a rock wrapped in tissue paper and she'd hug you for it. She peeled back the tape, lifted the lid, and stared. "Oh, it's a dress." She pulled it out, holding it up with both hands. It unfolded like a petal, soft pink cotton, delicate lace trim along the sleeves, and tiny embroidered flowers near the hem. It looked like something you'd wear to a spring recital or a tea party with invisible guests. I almost smiled. Almost. "It's pretty," I said carefully. Lucy held it against herself, spinning once, laughing. Then she paused. Her fingers brushed the front of the dress, just above the chest. She blinked, then turned to me, slowly. "Mommy, what is this?" The shift in her voice made my skin prickle. I walked over, looked down, and froze. There, stitched in fine white cursive, were 2 words. "For Ellie." It was like someone reached through the years and dropped ice water down my spine. I couldn't speak. Lucy looked up at me. "Who's Ellie?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in that moment, it wasn't just a dress. It was something else entirely. A message. A memory. And maybe a warning. I hadn't heard that name in almost 15 years. Not spoken aloud. Not written. Not whispered even in sleep. Ellie. It looked harmless on that soft pink fabric, stitched in cursive like a gift tag, but it hit me like a slammed door. My daughter blinked up at me, waiting for an answer I couldn't give. "It's no one," I said too quickly. My voice cracked. Lucy tilted her head. "But it says..." "I know what it says." She stepped back, startled by my tone. I took a breath, softened. I need a minute, okay?" She nodded slowly. She's used to that. My need for space, for silence. She's learned to give it. I hate that. I took the dress from her hands gently, like it might bite. I sat down on the couch, the fabric spilling across my lap like a wound. The name wasn't random. It couldn't be. My parents don't do random. And Ellie was never just a girl. She was the girl. The first person Ethan ever really loved. The first and only one he ever brought home. She was sweet, quiet, with a laugh that made our kitchen feel too small and full of sunlight. She made Ethan better. Softer. But my parents didn't like her. They never said it, not directly. But it was there in the clipped tones, the frozen smiles, the way my mom always forgot to set a place for her at dinner. They thought she was a distraction, a detour, something Ethan would grow out of. But he didn't. Until the accident. Until the night the sheriff knocked on our door and everything caved in. Ethan's car. A bridge. Rain. A curve he didn't make. That was all they told us. That, and the funeral would be closed casket. No one said Ellie was in the passenger seat too, but I knew. I saw her name missing from every call, every visit, Every conversation after that, I heard the silence where her grief should have been allowed. She disappeared, and so did the version of my family that once felt whole. After the burial, my parents erased her, scrubbed her out of Ethan's story like she'd never existed. They told everyone he'd been distracted, that he'd been struggling, that it wasn't her fault because she wasn't even there. But she had been. I knew. I remembered. And now, years later, her name reappeared, sewn onto a pink birthday dress for my daughter. Why? Why now? Was it a message? A memory? A manipulation? Or was it guilt? I ran my fingers across the stitches, delicate and exact. My mother's kind of exact. This wasn't a store-bought dress. This was intentional, made with care, chosen. For Ellie, not Lucy. Which meant whatever this was, it wasn't about my daughter at all. It was about someone my parents never wanted to admit they'd wronged. And the fact that they used Lucy to do it, that changed everything. We didn't talk about Ethan after the funeral. Not in full sentences, not with real words. There were pictures, sure still framed on the hallway wall, still dusted every Saturday. And there were remember whens offered like breadcrumbs, carefully chosen and sanitized. But no one mentioned what really happened. No one mentioned why. He was 17, brilliant, restless. The kind of boy who read philosophy books in secret and argued with teachers for fun. He used to sit at the edge of my bed and teach me phrases in French, just because he could. He was the only person in that house who ever saw me. And when he met Ellie, something shifted. He laughed more. He stopped picking fights at dinner. He even started showing up on time, which, for Ethan, was a miracle. I think that scared them. My parents. They liked their control quiet, predictable. Ethan loving someone they didn't approve of, that was a crack in the glass. It started subtly. Dad offering to introduce him to better influences. Mom casually suggesting Ellie might not be long-term material. And then came the ultimatums. You can live under this roof, or you can keep seeing her, but not both. Ethan didn't answer, not with words. He just stayed out later, came home less. And when he was home, he was quieter. Like someone trying not to knock over a house of cards. The last night I saw him, he was standing in the kitchen, staring at the fridge like it owed him something. He looked tired in a way I didn't understand yet. He said, "Do you ever feel like they'd love you more if you were just a little less yourself?" I was 14. I didn't know how to answer that. So I said nothing, and the next morning, he was gone. They told me it was an accident, rain-slick roads, a sharp turn, no drugs, no drinking, just one of those things. But when I asked where he was going that night, they changed the subject. When I asked if Ellie had called, they told me to stop asking. When I asked why her name wasn't in the obituary, my mother looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Ellie was a phase. She doesn't belong in our grief." That was the last time I mentioned her. After that, Ethan became a story they told in past tense, stripped of everything that made him real. They held on to the version of him they liked, the obedient son, the smiling boy in church photos, the one who never broke the rules or loved the wrong girl. They didn't bury Ethan that day. They buried the parts that made them uncomfortable. And now, all these years later, that name Ellie surfaced. Not in an apology. Not in a letter. But stitched onto a dress meant for my child. A silent reminder of the truth they tried to smother. And for the first time since he died, I felt something shift inside me. Not grief. Not guilt. Something closer to fury. I couldn't stop looking at the stitching. White thread, neat cursive. For Ellie. It wasn't just embroidery, it was intention. Design. A message dressed up as sentiment. And the more I stared at it, the more I realized this wasn't for Lucy. It was never for her. It was for them. My parents didn't send a birthday gift. They sent a memory, a reconstruction, a carefully packaged, soft-spoken guilt offering disguised as pink cotton and nostalgia. They wanted me to see it, wanted me to hold it and remember, but not the real story, not the storm and the silence and the brokenness they left in their wake. They wanted their version, one that was cleaner, softer, the kind where they were the grieving parents, and Ellie was just a name, and Ethan's death was just a tragedy, not a consequence. It hit me then. They were trying to rewrite everything. And worse, they were using my daughter to do it. That made my skin crawl. Lucy didn't know who Ellie was. She didn't understand the weight behind the name. To her, it was just a dress. Pretty, pink, a gift from her grandparents. But to me, it was a test, a trap, a stitched-up symbol of how far my parents were willing to go to pretend they were something they're not. They wanted to dress Lucy in a ghost. They wanted to put my child in a costume of their own denial and call it love. That's when the fury solidified into something colder, sharper. Resolve. I stood up, still holding the dress like it might shatter. I walked it into my bedroom, folded it gently, placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. I couldn't throw it out. Not yet. Not before I made a decision. The next morning, I canceled the monthly transfer I'd been sending to help with their bills. Stopped the grocery card reload. Deleted the calendar reminders labeled Dad's meds and Mom's utility payment. One by one, I closed every loop I had left open for them. It was mechanical, quiet. But inside me, something thundered. Later that day, the calls started. First my mother, then my father, then both. Voicemails that started polite and turned sharp. What message are you trying to send? Why would you return a birthday gift? Claire, this is immature. They didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask about Lucy. Didn't mention Ethan. Of course not. Because none of this was ever about understanding. It was about control. And when control slips, people like them panic. Let them. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to hold the pieces together. I was the one letting go. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was unsure, on the contrary, I'd never felt so certain, but because certainty has a pulse, and mine was racing. At sunrise, I got up, padded quietly into the kitchen, made coffee I didn't drink. The house was still. Lucy was snoring faintly upstairs. I sat at the table with the dress in front of me. It looked even softer in the morning light, like something fragile, almost innocent. I folded it slowly. Not with care, exactly, but with purpose. Then I pulled out a brown paper bag, tucked the dress inside, and added a note. Just 3 lines, written in my own handwriting. Sharp, clean, unmistakable. You tried to rewrite the past. I remember the truth. Don't contact me again. I sealed the bag, wrote their address, and drove to the post office. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I paid the postage in cash and walked out before the receipt finished printing. On the drive home, I passed a spot on the road where Ethan used to pick wildflowers for Mom. A stupid memory bloomed, and with it, a sharp ache I didn't expect. But I didn't turn the car around. I kept going. That night, the phone rang. Once, twice, 6 times. By the 10th call, I'd blocked both their numbers. By midnight, my inbox had 12 voicemails. By morning, 23. I listened to only one. My mother's voice, tight and seething. You're being cruel. Over a dress? Is that really what this is about? You're punishing us for something that wasn't even our fault. That last part made me laugh. A short, bitter sound. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app. I went through every automatic transfer, every safety net I'd built for them, bill reminders, monthly deposits, payment links, and I shut them down, one by one. Each cancellation felt like a breath I'd been holding for years. Not revenge, not rebellion. Relief. Then I created a new spreadsheet on my desktop, titled it, Things That Are Mine. There wasn't much on it yet: Lucy's name, my apartment, a few friendships I'd actually chosen for myself. But it was a start, a clean page. The last thing I did that day was take Lucy to the park. I watched her run toward the swings, hair wild, laughter loud, and I realized she'd never have to wear the weight I did. She'd never have to be a placeholder for someone else's grief. Not if I could help it. It had been 9 days since I sent the dress back. The calls had stopped. The voicemails had slowed. The silence felt earned. I thought that was it, the end of the reckoning. I was wrong. It happened on a Thursday, late afternoon. I was folding laundry, not thinking about anything at all, a rare and beautiful thing. Lucy was at her friend's house. The house was quiet. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something in me, some old reflex I hadn't buried deep enough, told me to pick up. Hello? There was a pause. Then, Claire? I froze. That voice. I hadn't heard it in over a decade, but my body remembered it instantly before my brain could catch up. Ellie? Another pause. Then, quieter. Hi. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The air felt too thin. I heard what happened, she said. About the dress. About everything. My heart thudded. How? They called me. I sat down on the edge of the bed, a crumpled towel still in my hands. They reached out to you? I asked. Yeah, a few weeks ago, out of nowhere. Said they were trying to reconnect with the past. I didn't know what to make of it. Then, the dress. I exhaled, shaky. I thought you disappeared. I didn't disappear, she said gently. I was erased. The words landed like stones in a still lake. I wanted to come to the funeral, she continued. They told me it would be inappropriate, that it would upset the family. I was 17. I didn't know how to fight back, so I left. I closed my eyes. I remembered the way my mother had looked through me when I asked why Ellie wasn't there. You were there that night, I said, weren't you? Another pause. Yes, I was in the car, but I lived. That's why they hate me. I sucked in a breath. I was in the hospital for 3 days, she continued. No visitors, no calls. When I was released, I tried writing. Once. Your mom sent it back torn in half. Tears burned the edges of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. They blamed you, I whispered. They couldn't blame Ethan, she said, and they didn't want to blame themselves. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy, real. Why now? I finally asked. Why the dress? I think they thought Lucy could be a do-over, a second chance, a cleaner version of what they lost, or maybe what they think they lost. My throat tightened. She's not a mirror, I said. She's not their redemption arc. I know, Ellie said. That's why I called. I didn't realize I was crying until the towel in my lap was wet. I loved him too, she said. Not like they did. Not with conditions. I know. Another long breath passed between us. I'm in Vermont now, she said finally. Not far. If you ever want to talk, or not talk, or just sit in the same space. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone in the story. Maybe, I said. Yeah, maybe. We didn't make promises. We didn't make plans. But when I hung up, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the beginning of something better. Truth. They showed up on a Sunday. No call, no warning, just the thud of car doors and the sharp tap of knuckles on wood. I opened the door slowly. There they were, my parents, standing on the porch like they hadn't hollowed out years of my life. My mother held a cake box. My father clutched his wallet like it might protect him. We just want to talk, she said. I didn't move. You've been talking. For years. Just not to me. My dad cleared his throat. Claire, don't make this into something it's not. I stepped out, closing the door behind me. You reached out to Ellie. My mother blinked. She was part of Ethan's life. She was the part, and you erased her. We were grieving. No, I said. You were curating, controlling, choosing which grief was acceptable. Hers wasn't. They didn't answer. She told me you sent her letter back, torn in half. My mother's face tightened. It wasn't the time. It was the only time. And you slammed the door. My father finally spoke. That girl was the reason he... No, I cut in. The reason was you. The pressure, the silence, the shame. He loved her, and you made it impossible. We lost a son, Claire. And I lost a brother, I snapped. But I didn't bury the parts that were inconvenient. Silence again. Not from guilt, from fear. Fear of being seen. You used Lucy, I said. You put her in a dress meant to carry your guilt. You wanted redemption in an 8-year-old. That's not love. That's manipulation. She looked so much like Ellie at that age, my mother whispered. We thought maybe... You thought wrong. I stepped closer, voice steady now. You want a second chance? Start with honesty. Say it. Out loud. That you tried to erase Ethan's truth. That you made Ellie a villain in a story she never wrote. My father stared at the floor. My mother's lip trembled, but neither said a word. I thought so. I turned to go. My mother reached for my arm. Claire, please. I pulled back. Don't touch me. Behind me, I heard the door open. My husband stood in the frame, arms crossed. Not angry, just finished. I think it's time for you to leave, he said. They didn't fight it. just turned and walked away, cake still in hand. I watched them go without a single pang of regret. No collapse, no second guessing. Just the cold, clean certainty of truth being spoken, even if only on one side. It's been just over a year. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. I haven't heard from them since that day on the porch, and I've stopped checking the mail for apologies that will never come. Lucy doesn't ask about them anymore. She used to. Little things: would Grandma come to her recital? Would Grandpa call on her birthday? But kids are perceptive. They watch how silence moves through a house. They feel what isn't said. Eventually, the questions stopped. Now it's just the three of Luxmy, Lucy, and Michael. We make pancakes on Sundays, we argue about bedtime songs, we dance in the kitchen while dinner burns slightly in the oven. It's ordinary, it's peaceful, it's ours. I still keep the spreadsheet on my desktop, things that are mine. I add to it sometimes. Lucy's laugh. My husband's patience. The quiet way the house settles at night when everyone's safe inside. One day, out of nowhere, I got a postcard. No return address, just a photograph of a wildflower field somewhere in Oregon. On the back, 4 words, handwritten in soft black ink. He would be proud. I didn't need a signature. I knew it was Ellie. I pinned it to the fridge, right next to Lucy's latest watercolor masterpiece. It belongs there, with the things that matter. Sometimes I wonder if Ethan would recognize me now, older, more tired, but finally steady. I think he would. I think he'd smile, tilt his head, and say, "Took you long enough." There are still hard days. Grief doesn't vanish, it just finds quieter corners to sit in. But I no longer live inside it, I live beyond it. There's no pink dress in Lucy's closet, no stitched names trying to rewrite our past, just cotton and color and freedom. She twirled in the living room last week, wearing a dress she picked orange with blue stars and mismatched buttons. Hideous. Perfect. She laughed so hard she fell over, and I did too. I don't carry the weight anymore. Not of being the daughter who stayed. Not of being the keeper of silence. Not of stitching myself into someone else's grief. I'm just me. Mother. Wife. Sister. Still, but on my terms. That's enough. Maybe more than enough. Sometimes, love means letting go not of people, but of the versions of them we've created to protect our own comfort. This story is a powerful reminder to older generations. The choices we make, the silences we maintain, and the truths we bury have consequences that echo across decades. As parents or grandparents, it's tempting to move on without ever facing what truly hurt those we love. But when we avoid accountability, we don't protect the family, we damage it quietly. Claire's journey is about reclaiming her voice, not out of rebellion, but out of self-respect. She teaches us that silence is not always peace, and loyalty should never cost your identity. If you're a parent, ask yourself, have I ever expected my child to carry pain I wasn't ready to face? It's never too late to choose honesty over comfort and love over control. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever stayed silent when you should have spoken up? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge, heal, and reflect the truth we often keep tucked away.